Hey there everyone, I'm Don, Professor Goway, and welcome to the theGowayPro Travel Tale Podcast. Travel far and travel often.
Are you ready to embark on a truly epic adventure to an undiscovered corner of South America, where some of the most spectacular natural attractions are unveiled within a beautifully diverse landscape? From the wetlands and savannas to the ancient mountains, magnificent waterways, and lush and enriching rainforest would provide a vast playground for some of the most exotic and breathtaking creatures on the planet, including many of the world's giant species. This untouched land of mystery and wonder serves up an exclusive experience for travelers. So are you ready for a new, awe-inspiring adventure? Welcome back to nature. Welcome to Guyana.
Hello everyone, welcome to the theGowayPro Travel Tales Podcast. I was just speaking to my two guests off air, which I'll introduce you to them both in a minute, about how the region that we're going to discuss today was once referred to, at least within Goway, Latin America. We now refer to it as the Americas, so Canada, US, Central and South. But our two guests were referring to their country within Latin America is, no, they don't refer to it as Latin America anymore themselves. They refer to it as South America. So I've now narrowed down our destination of today geographically into the lower continent of South America. And it's I would say, not forgotten about, but unknown destination for even probably some of the most hardiest travelers into that region of South America, and that is the country of Guyana. Now, just some little facts and stats for those who may not know. I'll let the girls, yes, actually, let me introduce our guest to you first of all. First, we have Carla, who I believe, Carla, you were once with the Guyanan Tourism Board, is that correct?
Yes, I was. I've actually spent 21 years of my career working with the government, ending my tenure with the Guyana Tourist Board.
And you are now working for our partner down there, Wilderness Explorers, is that correct?
Yes, I made the adventurous trip of switching from government to the private sector. A lot of fun.
And where are you coming to us from today? Are you actually in Guyana, in Georgetown?
Yes, I am based in Georgetown, Guyana.
Oh, lovely. So you're obviously born in Guyana, I would assume by that.
Yes, I'm actually originally from a remote indigenous community called Camarang, which actually is not known for tourism. That region, because of all the successes that they're seeing in other indigenous communities, are now looking to get involved in tourism. So really excited to be where I am today and also to help those communities get in tourism.
Wonderful. And we will touch on the indigenous interactions in Guyana soon. And our other guest is Jane. Jane has been representing Guyana for many years. Again, you just mentioned you'll be doing it for at least a couple of years. So, Jane, what's your background in relationship to Guyana?
So I started working for that. I have a representation firm in the U.S., started working for them in 2018 and representing them to the North American market. And it has just been so much fun. When I first started, everybody always thought we were selling. They'd say, "Oh, where in Africa are you selling?" And it would be, "No, wrong continent." And so that has been it's been so much fun, and we get to share this undiscovered part of South America with the world. Though it's a lot more discovered now than it was in 2018. The changes have been unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll touch on some of the reasons why Guyana is expanding, both from tourism, regional economic point of view, as we get into our conversation. And I think kudos must be sent out to the owner of Wilderness, who's a fellow Australian, Tony, and I met Tony forever ago at one of our travel shows. It was called Latin Travel Mart. And Tony's been in Guyana for many years, been slogging it hard for all those years. Attention of Guyana to the world. And I think probably finally now, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I think, Jane, you have inferred to it there that it's finally getting some traction from a tourism point of view for sure for Guyana, and it's not being viewed as anymore as one of those sort of little countries that off the main tourist route, which it has been historically. So, but before we get into all the sort of the meat to potatoes and Q's and A's of it, some little facts and stats people may not be aware of. Guyana was once part of the British West Indies, and by extension is the only country in South America with English as its official language. You have primarily, obviously, Spanish, Portuguese, Brazil. I would assume by the name French, Guyana, French would be the main language in that country. Either of you for that response?
Oh, it is part of France. Yes, French Guyana is part of France, and then Suriname is Dutch.
It was Dutch, yeah, because that was prior to the British taking control of Guyana. It was a Dutch colony.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Columbus actually did spot it on, I think, his third trip down there. But it was Sir Walter Raleigh who wrote an account of the region at the time. And as we said, the Dutch then took it over, then the British. And in 1966, Guyana won or took or was granted, I'm not sure of the history there, so I'll let you expand on that, independence from Britain. So 1966 makes 2026, let me do my maths, 60 years anniversary. Is that right, Carla?
Oh, yes, it is. It's going to be a very big year of celebration.
I bet, and deservedly so. It's bordered, so for those who may not know where it is, it's bordered by the Atlantic Ocean on its north, Brazil to the south and southwest, and Venezuela to the west, Suriname to the east. And it's, as we just referred to, it's referred to as the Guyanas, which includes Suriname and French Guiana. So again, if you're looking at a map, you're looking at the top right-hand corner. Now, Carla, getting into Guyana by road, is there a way, say, from Venezuela or Brazil, or do you have to fly into Guyana?
You can actually get in from Brazil. We actually share a border town called Lethem and Bomfin. But you can also drive over to Suriname, where we share a border as well, using a very small ferry. We do not have any road connections with Venezuela.
Right, and the reason I bring that up is, for those who know me, podcast, I was an overland driver, have driven through these regions, and this is one reason why, at least back in the day, it was often missed, because there were no sort of main road connection. You come in from Venezuela into northern Brazil, and then from Manaus out, there was no roads at the time, but I think there are still many. So again, it was always sort of just off. It was literally on the map, of course, but off the driving map. And again, back in the day, it's big brothers and sisters, Venezuela, Brazil, would grab all the limelight, let alone the Ecuador's, Perus of the region. So that's, I think, one reason why it's remained undiscovered to a degree all this time. Now, as Carla mentioned, she is from an indigenous tribe down there, and this is from Wikipedia, so Carla, you can correct me if I'm wrong. There are 9 indigenous tribes that reside in Guyana. Is that still a correct stat?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, that is correct. I won't read them out because most people will not understand them all, remember them all. But I think as we get into our conversation, you'll find that Guyana, from its wildlife, is also culturally very, very rich. And as Carla has also mentioned, the indigenous aspect can be part of an itinerary into the country. And on the wildlife point of view, Guyana, I'm just going to quote here, Guyana itself has one of the highest levels of biodiversity in the world, home to more than 225 species of mammals, 900 species of birds, 880 species of reptiles, and more than 6,500 species of plants. So you can see from that little introduction and the stats, it has cultural opportunities, it has wildlife, and by extension, adventure opportunities. So after all my rambling, let's get in and speak to the 2 experts about it. So, Carla, I've inferred and stated outright that Guyana back in the day was often forgotten about from a traveller's point of view. It is now better connected to get to, both from land and by air. So let's start with some basics. We've discussed where Guyana is. If a traveller is wanting to get to Guyana, for all the reasons we'll discuss in a minute, how can they get there from North America?
So the very funny thing about Guyana, we've actually had very good air connections with the North American market for quite a number of years. The main gateways are actually Miami and New York. Over recent years, we've had the addition of United Airlines, which now comes out of Houston. And we also have connections with Copa Airlines, I think, which really services, I would say, the western part of the U.S. So you can actually take Copa Airlines from San Francisco, come all the way to Panama, and then to Guyana. So air connections with North America has been really, really great. You have American Airlines, United Airlines, Caribbean Airlines, and more airlines are coming on stream. I would say it's a very big focus of the government in terms of increasing airlift.
And not to forget Canada. We've got Toronto, we've got Toronto and Montreal, Transat and Caribbean Air.
And they're direct flights for the Canadian gateways?
Direct flights. Now, Transat from Toronto and Montreal is just seasonal, so it'll run from about now, from I guess December until April.
Yeah.
Okay, so that you've sort of preempted two questions of mine there. So, are the flights seasonal? At least out of Canada, they are. Carla, out of the US, are they seasonal or are they annual?
They're annual.
Annual, and therefore, from the seasonal aspect, Jane, you mentioned running from now, so well, it's a double-sided question here. So from a flight point of view, it's seasonal, so it's Canadian winter, so, fun sun, snowbird mindset, as in when to go from a Canadian point of view in respect to airfare. But Carla, is Guyana a year-round destination? Is it seasonal? Is there a better time, or worse, I shouldn't say worse time, is there a better time to go down to Guyana?
Yes. Again, coming back to, what Guyana is really known for, what makes it special is our wildlife and rainforests. And the best time to see and experience that is actually in the dry season. That's because the waterways, the rivers are a little dry, etc. So animals come out and you have higher chances of spotting them. So the dry season, actually, I would say it's really two periods that we look at. So you're looking at from January to maybe up to the second week in April. And then we go into a very wet season from there. And then you will do a dry season again, beginning from mid-September just to the second week in December.
So would the dry seasons also be termed as the high seasons for Guyana?
Yes, it is.
Is the rainy season a time not to go, or it just offers different, obviously offers rain,
yes,
and dampness, but is it a time where you would say don't go, or just be aware that you'll get more rain that particular?
Oh, definitely do come. It's a different experience. For example, going through flooded forests, some of the very locations you go to spot wildlife and just to experience the rainforest. But you're going through, instead of walking, for example, to go to what's a common pond, you'll now be taking a boat ride in the flooded forest to get there. The other thing as well is Kaieteur Falls, which is our very main attraction. During the wet season, you get to see it at its fullest, and it's actually quite majestic when you travel at that time. The only downside of traveling in the rainy season is because it's a lot more rain. You have higher chances of your flights being canceled domestically because of rainfall. Visibility is important for pilots to land at the very small airstrips that are found throughout Guyana. But people do travel during the wet season. Again, it's a different experience, but it's not considered our high season.
And a lot of the diaspora will come during the wet season because they're coming, during their summer holidays.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So Carla's points there of flights, etc., that leads to the geographical layout of Guyana. So the main gateway, which we didn't touch on, was obviously, or would be, not maybe obviously, is Georgetown, which is on the coast, and it's the only city or the largest city in Guyana?
It is the largest town. It is the main capital, but you have other small towns throughout the country. But Georgetown is the main one. Once you land in Guyana, you have to visit Georgetown before you go anywhere else.
Okay. Now we'll come back to Georgetown and its attractions in a minute. Yeah. What I'm getting towards here is that when you look at a map of Guyana, for the most part, and again, I am sort of broad stroking it here, coastal area around Georgetown is where you'll find, I'm doing inverted commas for those who aren't watching, the city, civilization, so to speak. But for the most of it, I'd say 80% is more wilderness based. So therefore, getting around Guyana is often by flights to get into the center or the heart of the country, and then getting around by four-wheel drives. Is that correct, Jane?
That is correct. There is one main road that will take you into the interior. And how many miles of that is now paved, Carla? Because
I think
they're working on it.
Yeah, 48 miles, I believe, is the last update. But yeah, that is changing every day.
So 48 miles, a lot of people are going to go, well, that's not a lot of road to be paved.
Well, Georgetown's paved.
Okay. Let's not get people confused. Georgetown is paved. And again, it's like, I've not been, so I can't speak of it firsthand. It's like I wouldn't say city, a big town for the most part compared to other big cities in the region. But even 48 miles is not a lot of road when we talk the interior. Let me take a jump back here, Carla. How big is Guyana compared to a U.S. state? Most people will say it's as big as Texas or as whatever. What's the equivalent when we're talking Guyana from its size, geographical size?
Yeah. In comparison, I would actually say Guyana is the size of Idaho.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's in terms of the landmass, yeah.
Right. So 48 miles of road to the interior is not a lot, which goes to the point that even though Guyana is expanding, its wealth is increasing, we'll touch on that statement in a minute, it's still, and again, I'm asking this question of you two, it's still, compared to its neighbors in particular, a rustic destination with an infrastructure that may not be at the same level as of today's recording as someone may see in Colombia, Ecuador, Brazil, etc. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement. But what I would also add, it's really also what adds to Guyana's uniqueness. So just to put a bit of that, we're talking about the size of Idaho. Picture 80% of Idaho covered in rainforest, 87% covered in rainforest, and 80% of that in pristine forests. So Jane mentioned there's this one main road that comes from the city all the way going to the border town of Latham, which goes into Brazil. So that's our main highways. Outside of that, it is the small aircrafts, and our rivers actually have been the highways connecting indigenous communities, etc., which also forms part of the experiences that you are going to have when you come to a place like Guyana.
So people can view, and I'm now thinking from one of our destination specialists or travel partners there, that when they're selling, if someone comes to them and asks, in general terms, Guyana, you could say it's old school South America, it's more rustic, term I use. It's an often used expression, it's a jewel in the crown, it's a gem, unhidden gem type thing, where they're going to go to a country less touristed, but very, very natural in its offerings from wildlife to indigenous cultures.
And everyone speaks English.
And everyone speaks English. Now, that's a big plus.
It
a lot
is.
of travelers. They do get a little bit intimidated, even though most of South America is very well versed and switched on for foreign travelers, and in particular English speakers. Having English as the first language makes getting around and doing stuff.
And so you don't need a translator to speak to the local community. They're showing you how to make cassava flour, but they're just talking, and you can have the conversation back and forth. So it's really lovely not to have a translator.
Right. On that point, Carla, I would assume with the 9 indigenous tribes, that the indigenous languages are still spoken amongst themselves?
Oh, yes, it is. And I would say that tourism actually has been helping in maintaining those traditions and culture. Because there was a part, I would say, for a bit of time where, young people or the younger generation, was not becoming interested in maintaining those traditions. Now, because of tourism, it has rejuvenated that interest in keeping that culture so that we can continue to share that with our visitors that are coming to these different locations. So I think tourism has definitely been a force for good in preserving culture, traditions, heritage.
So I would assume by that maybe still to this day, but definitely, in the past at least, the youth of the indigenous populations and or people outside of Georgetown were doing what most young people will do, would head to the big city for university, different futures, that type of thing. And you're now saying tourism is helping, again, this is my term, I don't accurate, stem the tide of that physical exodus, but also, as you did say, the protection of indigenous cultures and languages and ways of life.
Yes, definitely. I would say services are definitely improving in the indigenous communities. And as I said, tourism is helping a lot of that. So for example, in communities that have their lodges that are owned and run by them, those revenues are going toward, for example, sponsoring someone from the community to go to university to become a doctor. So you have all these other, domino effect. But what's happening from that is, instead of that now trained doctor remaining in the city, they're now returning home to, be part of their community development.
Excellent. So when a young person, be it from an indigenous community, be it of British descent out in the bush or in Georgetown, when they look to go to university or, further their education, are they staying within Guyana and Georgetown? Are they going somewhere else in South America? Are they coming to the States, going to the UK for that education?
I would say majority of it is in Guyana. But there are, quite a bit now where there's scholarships that being offered by many, many countries. So you are seeing a slight increase in people going overseas, etc. And more recently, with the advancement of technology and internet, people are now able to, improve their education through online school, universities, etc. And that actually would have changed quite a bit, especially since COVID. So Starlink has also helped.
Starlink.
Exactly. Starlink has also helped. So now people are able to attend classes right from the comfort of their home and communities, even in the big cities, etc. So I would say education, majority of it is in Georgetown, Guyana, but now the different platforms to access have definitely increased.
But Guyana has a long-term reputation for having an excellent educational system. I deal a lot here in the U.S. with a lot of college professors who are Guyanese, and there are a lot of PhDs from Guyana.
It sounds like tourism, as it should, and modern technology, as it should in a perfect world, is having a huge positive impact for Guyana in that tourism is, again, my term, reinvigorating the indigenous way of life, as in, protecting it, keeping it thriving. And also you're not seeing a brain drain away from the country. It sounds like people are happy to learn and or better their education within Guyana. And you say, Jane, there's a good infrastructure there already, and even if they do go overseas, they're returning back. So it sounds like the positives of both tourism and modern technology has been a very positive experience for the country of Guyana. On that note, statistically, this is my reading up. I think Guyana had quite a high poverty level, up to 10 years ago. But I've learned in some recent conversations with Tony, the owner of Wilderness Explorers, and just some general research that, and it's a very hot topic at the moment politically, Guyana has discovered very large oil reserves off its coastline, to the point I think it's fourth in the world. Like it's substantial fine, and I believe that the oil industry is gathering pace there at the moment, which can hopefully only benefit Guyana more from an economic point of view. So, Carla, would you like to expand on, again, it doesn't have a huge impact on tourism, but I think it's just
Oh, it has had an impact on tourism.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. So,
because of the air lift.
oh, okay,
Yes.
yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Carla, do you want to expand on that a bit and just, the impact that it has and will hopefully have on the country in general and in tourism in particular?
Yes, definitely. So actually, I would say Guyana, first pulled oil out of the earth in 2015. And I do think just because of the way it is being managed or the way the growth has really helped the country, it is having a positive effect. Jane talked about increased airlift. That was actually as a direct result of increased demand for travel, business travelers, people coming to invest or even support services, to support the oil industry. Guyana did not have, or still does not have, I would say, the technical skill set to support the oil and gas. So a lot of that labor was imported. Now there's a lot of local content that's involved where Guyanese are being upskilled. So over the next coming years, we're going to be able to take over those technical positions, etc. So immediately, just to support the workforce, there was an increase in airlift. Now that's a positive for Guyana, for the tourism industry, because we've been appealing for airlift for many, many years. As I mentioned to you, we had the two main gateways with North America, which was New York and Miami, but we wanted more airlift with Europe, etc. And those are now being serviced, and that's increasing and changing every time. Another positive impact for oil and gas is just raising the standard in which businesses operate. In oil and gas, health and safety is really, really big. And that has allowed every industry to improve their standard, including tourism. COVID also would have helped in that because we really had to examine the way we were operating and improve that. So oil and gas is having an effect, again, just higher standard of operation. So one of the other things for Guyana is the oil revenues. There is a structured way for Guyana in terms of how those resources are used. And there are select industries that are being used to diversify the economy beyond oil and gas. And tourism is one of that industry that has been identified, to help the economy beyond oil. So there is a concerted effort in terms of investing in tourism. There is massive infrastructure development that's happening in the capital, on the coast, in the interior, where, what Jane was talking about, this one road. There is expansion of roadways. There is expansion of airstrips to accommodate larger aircrafts, etc. All of this is happening because of the oil and gas revenue, and all of these developments supports the industry. So in a couple of years, Georgetown is going to look drastically different. Guyana is going to look drastically different. However, the development of tourism is being very thoughtful. I talk about the 87% forest coverage. The plan is not to clear that down. The plan is to keep that and to use the resources from oil and gas to support the development of the tourism, agriculture, and other industries like that.
Yeah. I'm also going to add, they're upgrading the port.
Yeah.
So for ships to come in now, not huge giant ships, but they're making that better for smaller, more boutique cruise ships that will be able to come in.
For clarification, from a geographical point of view, my understanding is the oil find is offshore, correct?
Yes, it is.
Right. So in your conversation there of development off the back of oil and gas, at least as we sit here today, this does not impact Guyana's interior with logging and clearing. Which you did mention making airstrips bigger, that type of thing. That's not directly for the oil and gas industry. That's just a byproduct to invest in the infrastructure of the country, correct?
Correct.
And keep in mind, you also have a lot of expats who are living in Georgetown, and they want to do things for the weekend
Well,
and
that's what I was
get
going
out
to
of the
say.
city. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
if you have all these experts coming in to develop the oil and gas, yeah, they're going to want to do stuff in their downtime, and any type of tourism is a natural byproduct of that. So that's the first, I guess, or other than the tourism that's been there for years, that's the first, big injection of new people. And by extension, as we all know, travel is a lot of word of mouth. This
Yes.
country's great. This company's great. Go away.
yeah. So
Yeah,
they've gone from being the poorest country in South America to the wealthiest.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I was going to sort of wrap this
Yeah.
little point up, that it's oil and gas has, again, like everything, it's got its pros and cons. One of the pros will be obviously more wealth into the country, and if it can be managed properly, which I've no doubt it will be, then everyone from visitors in to the indigenous communities to the locals hopefully can only benefit from it. Jane, I'm going to ask you this as an American, and the fact that Guyana borders Venezuela at the moment. Well, actually, I should probably ask Carla. She's probably closer to this from a political point of view. Carla, again, I say this because we're recording this in early January 26. There's obviously some friction with Venezuela and the U.S. government at the moment. As it stands today, is there any perceived overspill of those issues into Guyana, or it's just really too far away to warrant any concern for a traveller?
Yeah, no, it's definitely too far away. And I do think that Venezuela has its own problems to focus on. And I would say for years, I mean, this is a long-standing issue that we've had with Venezuela, and it's always been an exchange of words, really, and no action. So I know that there's a lot of information online which really positions Guyana in some way as being unsafe because of this potential situation. But the reality on the ground is everything's basically normal in terms of operations, flights. There's no disruption to business. It is business as usual. But yeah, we continue to monitor it, but it is not something that we are worried about in terms of that situation spilling over to Guyana.
Okay. Yeah, again, I expected as much in that response, but I'm sure there will be travel partners out there who may get that question or may themselves be
for sure.
conscious of it. So again, as of recording, there is no issue there. One thing I would like to point out, based off the back of Carla's response to the oil and gas thing, is that as the country, and Jane's point, from poorest to potentially the wealthiest country in the region, and Carla did say Georgetown will look drastically different in 2 or 3 years from now, and I'm sure it's changed in the last 2 or 3 years from the original find, is that clients and passengers out there, travelers out there, to see Guyana as it probably, well, you can never see things as they were, but if you want that rustic experience, that sort of forgotten South American country, get in now before its wealth does maybe change it to the point that it's not what it was. And, it's natural progression, of course, and I'm sure, Carla as a Guyanese, Guyanese, is that the correct terminology?
It's actually Guyanese.
Guyanese, sorry, my bad.
That's okay.
Welcomes the change in the improvement of her country. But for a traveller, if you want to see that untouched rustic site, get in sooner rather than later, because it will change probably faster than the average country due to gas, an impact.
Yeah.
So that's the modern progression we're seeing now, the investment, the money that will come into the country. So as I just said, Guyana is about the rustic experience, the wildlife experience, the indigenous experience. So we've established that, civilization, again, inverted commas for those who aren't watching, is pretty much coastal. The interior, 80% of it is rainforest. Of that 80% is virgin. So what are the highlights, Carla, and the draw to go into the interior of Guyana? Why do people need to do this?
Yeah. I think on top of the list is really that cultural immersion. Again, having those direct conversation with the indigenous people who are really the protectors of the forest that we have intact to this day, and having them, share their tradition and culture with you. And outside of that, you you talk about the biodiversity within Guyana. That's what makes Guyana special, and being able to see nature as it is intended. There's not a lot of places too that you can go to and have an entire national park, for example, where I'm talking about the Kaieteur National Park, to just you and your group. You're not competing to get the perfect view, etc. You have the entire place to yourself. And this is also even when you go to the interior lodges, etc. They're very small. Most are 8 to 10 rooms. So majority of the time you go there with you, or it's just going to be your group having the entire place to yourself. So you have that personal attention, so to speak, and it really does, I would say, change your definition of what's luxury, because you're just getting that personal attention from all the people that you interact with.
Yeah. And, something I did one time a few years back is I went on a camping trip. We went, 4 hours up a river, and 4 or 5 hours up a river, and we did not see another human being who was not in our group for 4 days. And there are not many places that you can experience that in the world. And it was so special.
That experience then goes back to my point before of getting in there now before it becomes even more popular, which I know is the goal of both Jane and Carla, to get more people there. Like, it's that sort of, but, it will take time and infrastructure will come. But if I'm talking to our travel partners out there now, if they're really looking to offer a destination in South America that's new, different, safe, English speaking, and again, a hark back to back in the day, then Guyana should be at the top of that list for sure. Carla, you mentioned group sizes or being in an area where you're the only person around. So I know this, I've asked this question before in other podcasts, but I'll ask again. The infrastructure when it comes to accommodation outside of Georgetown. I know in Georgetown you have your sort of corporate hotels plus local hotels, 5, 4, 3-star. Excuse me. But when someone heads to the interior, what level of accommodation are they looking at when they're in that area?
I would actually best describe it as very simple and rustic. You have a comfortable bed, clean rooms, running water. The only thing you don't have is hot water. You have internet. There was one other thing, Jane. We always say we don't have
air conditioning.
No air conditioning, correct. Those are the only 2 luxury items that you are missing. But when you're actually in the jungle or in the savannah lodges, you actually don't need hot water. It's actually quite refreshing. And sometimes you really don't need that cold shower, so to speak, to just, set your temperature back and just to be ready for the next adventure.
Fair enough. Is the intent, I know you're now private sector, Carla, but you did work with the tourism board, with the incoming wealth through oil and gas, and then hopefully the increase in numbers of travellers coming to Guyana, is the intent to expand on the accommodation levels in the interior, or to keep it at that experience of that rustic, simple level?
Yeah. I think from both private sector and a government standpoint, everyone wants to grow, but we also want to grow, I would say, to a level that is manageable. So from a private sector standpoint, the lodges, etc., they are looking to increase their capacity. And the reason is for that is because I mentioned about the 8 rooms, and oftentimes, even right now, like we're looking for 2027, 2028 accommodation availability. And sometimes these small accommodations are booked out 6 months to 1 year in advance. So there's definitely a need for more capacity. So that is happening slowly from the private sector, the current private sector that we have. And we are also looking at investing in, I would say, a higher quality accommodation, more luxurious as well. And that's because the market is asking for that, and we have to meet that demand. So I know from a government perspective, they have put out, for example, a call for proposals for more luxury lodges, resorts, etc., within different locations within Guyana. So I think it's going to be a hand in hand where you're going to have different options. Like right now, you go to an area, you have only one accommodation option.
Yeah.
In the next 5 years, now you're going to have the option to say, do I want a rustic lodge that is managed by an indigenous community, or it could be an indigenous community partnering with another private sector to offer something that's a little more upscale. So that's the direction, but it's not a case where nobody's putting up 100 rooms in any particular location. That's not the kind of growth that is going to happen. And that is an agreement, I would say, a concerted effort by both the private and government. We want to grow in a very sustainable way. We are very passionate about our environment. So it is going to be, a consultative process. And just to grow in a way that we can manage.
Yeah, one of the beauties of Guyana is because tourism has been so small, they have been able to see where other places have failed, where other places have done a good job. And so they have really come up with an excellent plan. And it is a really good plan that they've put together for growth. And they've been able to see what works and what doesn't from other countries.
Yeah. Agreed. And Jane can attest to this because you also look after some lodges and destinations in Africa as well. Mm-hmm. What you generally see these days and what a trend is, I wouldn't say it's a trend anymore, it's just the way people like to travel for the most part, is you will have travelers looking to experience the authentic side of the country in choice. For instance, Guyana, be involved in indigenous interactions, be confident knowing that the money they're spending is going to some degree back into the local communities, the local economies. But you will also find that the average go-away client, for the most part, as roughy-tufty as they like to be during the day, or over a couple of days of maybe trekking and camping, they then want to come back to something comfortable from an accommodation point of view. Mm-hmm. And I see, and Joan, you can again attest to this, that almost every new property that opens up around the world is 4 to 5 star these days. There's not a lot of people going in at the rustic 3-star level for the most part. So it's good to hear that Guyana is heading that way because there will be people looking for it. It's good to know that they're going to be opening up more than one lodge in one area because, again, if you're both successful in your roles, which I know you will be, you're going to have demand outstripping supply, which, we don't want to get to. Yeah. But on the flip side, it's good to hear Carla say that it's going to be done in a very controlled, consultative and sustainable way because, a lot of the aspects of Guyana we're preaching today, its rusticness, its indigenous aspect, its beautiful wildlife and nature, you don't want to have, if not destroyed, damaged by increasing too fast, too quickly, and in the wrong ways. From the wildlife point of view, I know that you can see, or probably one of the more famous birds down there is the harpy eagle. Can you see jaguars in Guyana?
Yes, you can, but you have to be really lucky. You have to be lucky. Yeah, no. Yeah. So the reason I say you have to be lucky because I've been in the industry for over 20 years and I've been on multiple trips in the interior of Ghana and I have not been lucky enough to see it, but I have had groups travel just before me, just after me, and they've had good luck in spotting the jaguar on this very main highway, this one highway that we talked about going from the city all the way to Latham. The more common area for spotting the jaguar is actually in the Araucama Rainforest Reserve. People have had really great luck in spotting it in that location. And the good thing is with the way itineraries are designed, they give you multiple opportunities to be able to spot these wildlife. I think as a matter of fact, I think we really do focus a lot on the giants that you can see in Guyana. So the jaguar is the largest cat. Another large mammals that you are able to see, for example, the giant anteater. You also have the giant river otters. We have the giant river turtles. We have the largest snake, which is the anaconda. There's a lot of giants, including the harpy eagle, which is the largest raptor. Yes.
And the biggest spider, but which is it's not on a wall, guys. It's in the ground. You're going to see it in the forest. Yeah.
That's a big thing because Australia has a lot of big spiders all over the place.
Yeah.
Carla, in respect to the big wildlife you just listed there, with the exception of the jaguar, which you concede is hard to see, lucky to see.
Yeah.
Someone doing a trip into Guyana on a wildlife-based trip, which sounds like what most of the trips would be, are they likely to see those giant species you just mentioned?
Yeah. So I would say the ones that are more common, like you get to see a lot of monkeys, but a giant anteater, you have a very high chance of seeing that, especially if you go to a place like Karanambu or Waikan Lodge or Wichabai. And you also get to see giant river otters. Again, once you come in a dry season, you have a greater chance and opportunity to see the wildlife.
And then birds like the harpy eagle, they tend to nest in an area for years.
Yeah.
And so they know where they are. And if you make a specific trip to where they are, your chances are you're going to see them.
Yeah.
And Jane, that leads or jumps into my next question. I know for a fact that Guyana is famous for birding or bird life and in turn birding. So beyond the harpy eagle, we have birding itinerary or birding focused itineraries. So if someone's into bird life, so outside the harpy eagle, what else of note is there to see from a birding point of view?
The sun parakeet, the Guyana cock of the rock. Not a great birding expert myself.
I would say like the Watson as well, the blood-colored woodpecker. Quite a lot of, I would say, on a trip that someone comes, they really do hit a lot on their list. And again, this ranges from coastal to savanna to rainforest in terms of the habitats that you're going to be able to visit and experience. The red siskin actually was one.
Oh, the red siskin. Yes, that's very important. Yeah.
Yes.
Going back to the rustic aspect of the interior in particular, not that it should be a driving force for someone to travel, but as a photographer, taking photos and then wanting to either upload them or share them. You mentioned Starlink has made a big impact in Guyana. So for the most part, will people be connected when they're in the interior if they choose to be?
They are going to have internet connection at the lodge itself. When they go out on the road and on the waterways, no, because you don't really have a lot of cell coverage. But at the lodge itself, they are going to have internet and be connected.
Okay, that's key. As long as people have it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think that's the important part. So we've discussed wildlife. We've discussed some of the species, the birds. We've talked about indigenous encounters a lot, but we haven't been specific. So Carla and or Jane, if someone wanted to go down with an indigenous encounter as their sort of focal point of their trip, what's on offer?
So there's quite a lot of indigenous communities that are really doing tourism right. Surama Eco Lodge is one of the is the first community actually to get involved in tourism. That community is actually one of the locations you go to if you want to see the harpy eagle. And again, you're talking with Mukushi guides in English. Mukushi, by the way, is one of the indigenous groups. They're known to be very shy. So being very new to tourism as well, they're learning to be hosts, but also having a very good time. Another community that does really, really good is called Rewa Eco Lodge. They are best known for doing sports fishing. And as a matter of fact, they do catch and release of the arapaima, which is the world's largest scaled freshwater fish. And they have limits and permits and all being able to do that. But it's also one of the locations that's very, very good for spotting wildlife as well. And the beauty about Rewa is their community, which is just over 300 persons living in that area. They all within a year, they work at the very lodge that supports that community. So they have a very nice community business model for tourism. You also have other private lodges that operate within indigenous communities. So like Karanambo Lodge, for example, while it's privately owned, its team members are all from indigenous communities that are nearby. So the guides, the people who are cooking for you, making your beds, etc., they're all indigenous people. And you also go to Wichabai, which is in a place that is deep south in the Rupununi. And if someone types Guyana and Rupununi, they're going to see that that's a destination within Guyana of itself. But again, this ranch, this working ranch, is located nearby indigenous communities who all work at the lodge, the ranch, and also showcase their cultural tradition within the communities themselves. So depending on what experience you're looking for, there is something for everyone. As a matter of fact, I talked earlier about that I was born in a community called Camarang, which is in a geographic area that's called Region 7. That particular area is now getting involved in tourism, more focusing on hard adventure, so a lot more multi-day treks and treks on mountains and going to different waterfalls. One of the communities that we're actually so very proud to work with is called Parima. They're the last remaining Arikuna indigenous group that is settled in Guyana. And this is actually found very close to Mount Roraima, that border with Brazil and Venezuela. So that community, I think, if we look at the history of tourism and developing tourism within indigenous community over the years, Surama took 10 years to develop their product. Rewa took half, I think they said half that time. And now you have Parima, which is our most recent. They actually developed tourism, I say, within 2 years. So the learning curve for indigenous communities getting involved in tourism is getting shorter, and that's because they're learning from each other, and they have more experts like us who are helping to train them and get them involved in tourism. So there's a lot of successes, and I've just named a few. There's another village that's called Warapulka, which is also known for the harpy eagle as well. So depending on your interest, there's just something for everyone.
It would sound like, therefore, any trip into the interior at its base level has indigenous interaction, because it sounds like almost all the guides, if not all, and all the staff will be indigenous tribes of the area. And then you can take that up a notch if you want to get more involved or have a stronger interaction with the local cultures.
Yeah, very true. I talk about Surama, for example. They have a farm-to-table experience where you actually go to their farm where they're planting the cassava, and then they show you how they use that for their food, making it into cassava bread, or another staple that's called farine, which is kind of like couscous, if I'm to give it a comparison. And they show you how to make all of these things. So again, depending on how interested you are, there are multiple experiences within the communities, within the lodges, who employ local people, local indigenous people.
When it comes to education, or coming back to education, the youth of these tribes, not tribes, not the right word. I guess it is. Is it? Is tribes the correct terminology?
They actually refer to indigenous groups, yes.
Indigenous groups, okay. So for each of these indigenous groups in the interior, when the youth are growing up, when it comes to education, are there local schools they attend there, and are they taught their indigenous language as well as English growing up?
So I'll take the first part of your question. Yes, there are schools. There's nursery, primary, for many years, and now they've been adding high schools within the area so that they're able to graduate at a much higher level. So that has been happening and improving. And I think going back to Jane's point, that education has been a top priority for Guyana for many years, and that continues to evolve. One of the, you talk about teaching in indigenous language. Now, there's actually one community where I know within the past 5 years, they have been doing a pilot regarding, and this is actually the Wapishan indigenous group in a village called Aishalton. And they actually found that the students were performing much better when they were taught in their local language. So because that pilot has been successful, they're now looking to expanding to another indigenous language, which might be Makushi, and then to expand that throughout the rest of Guyana. But they did a pilot. They thought it was successful, and that has been exciting, especially for me, because I actually grew up in Camarang in my home where my mom spoke Akawayo. I'm actually from the Akawayo indigenous group. But I would say in cultures there, children, when you're young, you're not allowed to be part of adult conversations. So because of that, my mom actually spoke to me in English and spoke to her family in Akawayo. So unfortunately, the little that I know is from my grandmother when I would visit her farm, etc., when I was a very young child. But beyond that, to have a full-on conversation, I missed out on that.
Oh, that's a shame. That is a shame.
Yes.
Jane, you mentioned that you did a camping trip at one stage. Carla, you mentioned in a previous answer about hardcore adventure. As we've mentioned, Guyana, for most part, is a rustic experience you're going to take. Going into the interior is adventurous in itself. So can either of you, let's give Jane an opportunity here. Mm-hmm. From soft adventure to hard adventure, can you give us some examples of what people can choose to do?
So, like on the camping trip, we were sleeping in hammocks, surrounded by mosquito netting. And I will tell you, a hammock's the most comfortable thing ever to sleep in. You're not on the ground. The locals, the indigenous people do not sleep on the ground. They sleep in hammocks. But you can go, going out in the boats fishing, going out with the local community to capture caimans for a research project to help with that. I'm just trying to think. The four-wheeling, there's a rally you can do four-wheeling. You can actually rent the cars, or I would do it with a guide, and go out and drive.
Is there an equivalent of a, sorry to interrupt, is there an equivalent of a trek to the Lost City or a trek to Machu Picchu? I don't mean trekking to a set of ruins per se, but an extended overnight trekking route or famous. Like, can you walk to Kaita Falls first, flying over it?
It takes 3 days, I believe. Yeah. Yes, you can.
You can do it overland.
Can do it overland, and that'd be camping en route, I would assume.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So, to summarize, you can do soft adventure, considering where you are in virgin rainforest, to more hardcore adventure, from rally driving to trekking to the waterfalls and everything in between.
And there's a guy who will take you out if you want to go out for a month into the wilderness and go up the rivers and explore. You can do that.
Right, so you can be.
And there is even, I forgot the jungle survival course that you can do.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Lot of options.
That one teaches you mental strength to be in the jungle on your own. Obviously, they give you the skills to survive before they let you go in the jungle on your own. But I think that one is quite an interesting experience.
You're released on your own into the jungle?
Yes, you are, for the jungle survival. You have to survive on your own to pass that course.
So it's a proper survival course. It's not
It is.
It's not a weekend warrior course. It's like,
no, it is a proper survival course. Because I actually said to the guy who started it years ago, I said, I would die. And he said, nope, because I will teach you how not to die.
Well, that's probably a bit extreme, even for Goway to start releasing some of our travelers into the wilds of Guyana on their own. That might be a little bit, like, we like hard adventure, but I think that's truly extreme adventure.
But they're well trained by the time they do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, one thing I'd like to return to, this is from a historic point of view. a lot of people have probably heard about this incident, have heard the name, but never put one and one together, i.e. is where Guyana is in respect to this. And this is Jonestown. I think the terminology or this expression is the Jonestown massacre. And it was from, it was a US-based evangelistic preacher of some description who had his followers go to Guyana and I think, what was his name, Jane?
Jim Jones.
Jim Jones. And he created Jonestown where his disciples and followers gathered. And for whatever reasons, I don't know the history well enough, but this is why I do this particular tour. He convinced them, or maybe not convinced them, forced them into a mass suicide. So that was, when was that, Jane? When was that?
1978 or so. Is that correct, Carla? Something around there?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. And
but there are lots of, right now, there have been a lot of documentaries on it where they've gone back and looked at it after like 40 years, 40 or 50 years.
And I remember actually seeing one of those because it came to note to me as a young Australian on the news. It made news for obvious reasons. And it was just presented at the time. And this is also youth and 40 years ago memories. It was like this, these disciples willingly took their lives for beliefs that were... Or
they were forced to, yeah.
That's what I think has been more discovered in recent years, that it wasn't so much a voluntary situation, it was more a forced situation. Anyway, so Carla, when that happened, obviously it was huge news. As times have changed, and I would assume by the fact there's now a tour based around this, that Guyana has accepted that part of its history and is now willing to discuss it with the world. Is that why this tour was sort of created, or was it through demand that people did know about Guyana, did know about the Jonestown massacre, and wanted to learn more about it, or all of the above?
Yeah. I think a little bit of all that you've said, but I think one of the main things too is the perception that it was actually Guyanese who would have perished at this massacre. And you have quoted the history correct, but there's still a lot of unknown and wrong information around that tour. So Guyana has been known for this situation for many, many years, or this incident for many years. And we wanted to be able to tell, I would say, the Guyana side of it, while respectfully telling that story and how it happened and why it happened, basically.
Can I ask a question? And this is pure curiosity, and I'm sure it would come out in the tour down there, but why did Jim Jones choose Guyana to set up his ministry or his base?
I don't know if we know that particular answer as to why he chose Guyana particularly.
I think it was inexpensive land.
Yeah, that's probably the reason. Yeah. Yes,
and you can be isolated enough.
Yeah, because back in the 70s, Guyana would be obviously even less known about than it is today, for obvious reasons. Okay, yeah. It's curious, and and it is still a sticky subject. A lot of people don't like that they're doing this tour. Well, that was my next question. Is like still a sore point, even though it was 78 or whatever you mentioned. As I said, like I heard about it in the news, and then it fell out of my memory for obvious reasons, being in Australia. But when I started working as an overland guide in Latin America, it became sort of not on the radar, but because it was in the region, I did a bit more research into it and learned a bit more about it myself. So yeah, I can well understand that it'd still be a touchy subject. I was surprised when you did mention that it was an option down there, but at the same time, there's curiosity.
People always ask me. I mean, it's one of the first things. Yeah. It was interesting when I started working for the country, my sister, who's older than me, said Jonestown. My nephew said Gold Rush because the TV show Gold Rush was there.
Yeah.
Oh okay.
So, yeah.
So I can see why the government and all the people may not want it to be the point of recall,
because they had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Other than allowing them in.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess fame, albeit infamous fame, is a reason that people will notice your country. And again, if it gets them in the door, that's they're in the door.
They can charm them with the great food and everything else once they're there.
Yeah. But again, to be perfectly honest, I don't think that will be the main driving force.
No.
They're going to
No.
attract people to Guyana. I think everything we've discussed today will, and if someone has an interest, they now know, our travel partners now know, that that's an option they can take and do a half day or a full day tour to learn a bit more about it if they're interested. And if they're not, then Harpy Eagle, Coyote Falls, indigenous interactions, etc. I think,
and all the cool things to do in Georgetown now too.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's wrap up our podcast with exactly that, because I did say when you get back to Georgetown, main gateway in, main gateway out, a port is being developed to attract more boutique style cruising. I hope it stays at that. I'm not a fan of the big ships dropping.
I'm not either.
People off in any city, but that's obviously for the Guyanese and the government to decide. Most of your trip will be spent in the interior, or should be spent in the interior. So let's go back to Jane. How many days should someone allocate for Georgetown? And then Carla, what can you do in and around Georgetown?
So day-wise, I would say 3 days, I think, is probably a great time to go. You know, a lot of people just come overnight and leave, but I think 3 days is really good, especially if you want to do a good food tour. There are some great food tours. I personally, and I will say Wilderness did this it took me on my first trip there. We did a pub crawl on a Sunday night at the waterfront. On the, I just forgot the name of it, Carla.
The seawall.
The seawall, thank you. On the seawall, which on Sunday nights, all of these vendors come out, and but we did we had a chef take us around and go to his favorite spots on a Sunday night with all the locals the families are out there, people on dates, and it is so much fun to do that. And only a local would really know to do that.
Okay, so again, we have to remember this was part of the British Empire. The pubs will be part of the
And don't forget, we have the world's best rum, El Dorado.
Oh, okay, that I didn't know.
Oh, it's really good.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Carla, beyond the pub crawls and the good food, which I no doubt is on offer down there, what else does Georgetown and its surrounds offer?
Yes. So I think one of the very nice things about Georgetown, which is why spending 2 to 3 days in the city is absolutely, I think, important, is because it really gives you, I would say, that really nice introduction, or if you're ending the tour, the sense of this cultural melting pot that we have in Guyana. We have 6 main ethnic races in Guyana, and you see all of that come to life through the food and history, etc. So in terms of filling your time, Jane talked about the Sunday afternoon going to the seawall to see that lively atmosphere, but also doing a market tour. I think really is something nice. You get to go to the market with a chef. You're sampling fruits and food along the way, street food style. And again, that's how I think you can truly understand the culture of a place through their food. And many times too, you also see that we're such a big world, but we're connected in so many ways. You know, for example, basil, which is known in North America, we call that married man poke in Guyana. So you see all these things, like there's so much connection. You get to sample different fruits. And then you also have the option of saying, you know, if you see something interested, you can tell the chef, you know, I want to try that. He goes back, he buys everything that you've selected in the market with him. He goes back to his home to prepare that meal for lunch while you go off exploring the city, learning about the history, etc. After the city tour, you then go back to his place to have lunch at his home. And he actually refers to this as backyard. It's called backyard cafe. That's because it's actually in his backyard. It's not a fancy AC building. It's really in his home. So you get, again, to go home to another local. The other excursion too is we have 3 main rivers in Guyana. Demerara River is our main commercial port. So you get to see the city from a different angle. We have an afternoon boat ride, which is a bit of, again, history with looking at a city from a different point of view. But you also get a bit of nature experience within that. And you also get to enjoy a lovely sunset at the end of the day over some drinks, Eldorado rum, etc. And you get to see the birds roost at the end of the day. And that's a really, really nice way to end that day. The other
and the bird life was spectacular doing that. It was, I was surprised how close you are to the city to see those kind of birds.
Correct. And she talked about bird, and on that particular Demerara River sunset tour, you actually get to see the scarlet ibis. They're all in thousands roosting on a tree. The other excursion as well in the city that's really good is birding within the botanical gardens. It's a very early morning or afternoon excursion as well. That's really nice. So for people that are into birding, there aren't many cities you can go to and see over 200 species of bird in the middle of the city. And that's what the botanical gardens offer. And then you also have coastal birding as well. Sorry.
And you can go see manatees.
Yes.
Oh.
So
yes. Yeah.
So it would seem that the wildlife we sort of, generalized before, 80% is forest. It sounds like the wildlife has creeped right up to the coast and into Georgetown itself. So other than the modern day cultural interactions, pub crawls, local chefs, etc., the historical aspects, you've got wildlife literally in the city of Georgetown. Yeah. And I'd like to use a comparison here for someone looking to travel to Guyana and not skip Georgetown. Is in the early days of developing the South America product here at Goway and in Peru, historically, people would fly into Lima and get out of Lima really quickly. They thought it was yucky and scary and unsafe and all that type of thing. And it never was. It was always very, very interesting. Mm-hmm. And I've seen over the years how people have gone from just using Lima as the gateway in and out overnight to now spending 2 or 3, 4, up to 5 days there if you really want to get into it. So it sounds like Georgetown, as Jane mentioned earlier on, has that depth of things to see and do as well. Mm-hmm. All that is to say to our travel professionals out there, when you're building your itinerary, give 2 or 3 days to Georgetown for all the reasons that Carla and Jane have just mentioned. It shouldn't be used as literally your gateway in and out wholly and solely. Before we wrap up, just some questions on some logistical stuff. I'll just throw these at Jane. North Americans, Canadians, Americans, do they need a visa to visit Guyana?
No.
Okay. Carla, money. I know you have it. You've got a lot more coming with the oil and gas. What's the currency, ATMs, credit cards? I guess it's all, you can use all that when they're down there?
Yeah. Guyanese dollar is the official banking note here, but we also accept US dollars, and MasterCard, Visa are generally widely accepted. Amex, not so much.
Yeah, that's not just with Guyana. That's almost everywhere in the world I find. I'm an Amex card holder, and I often run into that issue. Health, in respect to, as we've discussed, most of your trip will be the interior, very remote. If someone was to get ill or hurt themselves in the interior, getting them to medical facilities quickly and easily, I'm assuming that's all in place in regards to light aircraft and or local hospitals, doctors?
Yes. As I mentioned, there's a lot of development that are happening in the different parts of Guyana. So there are actually hospitals in a lot of these locations now. But also, yes, light aircrafts are available to bring someone out if it absolutely requires that.
Yeah. And I'm going to recommend people carry hydration fluid, Hydramate or one of those, and have 1 or 2 of those a day if you're in the interior, because it can get very hot. And if those of us who aren't used to that heat.
Is it a dry heat or a humid heat?
Humid heat.
Depending on the time of the year.
I think it's humid year round.
We've mentioned, or you ladies have mentioned, when it comes to the lodges, et cetera, in the interior in particular, either only one in one particular area, or if there's a few, they are still small capacity. So I'll throw this one at Jane. Goway has a very large groups department. We have lots of birding groups, et cetera, et cetera. Guyana is an obvious destination for a lot of groups, painters, photographers, birders, et cetera. If we have, or someone comes to us with a group of 10 or more, maybe in the 20 mark, how well is Guyana geared to handle group travel outside of Georgetown?
They can handle up to 10 or 20. They may have to, if 20, they're going to have to share a room.
Okay, then. And if the location works, they could maybe split them into 2 lodges. But again, if it's a 1 lodge situation, they're going to have to look at, as you say, sharing. So on that note, again, a question for Jane. For groups in particular, but in general, I know the answer is groups in particular, you should be booking a year and a half ahead by its nature.
Yes.
In general, for a couple traveling, 3 or 4 people traveling together, how far ahead do you recommend that they book for Guyana to get the space? Because I think it's going to come down to space particularly.
5 years ago, I would have told you a month.
Oh.
Now it is, everything has changed so much, Carla. It's still, things are booked up.
Yeah, no, the lead time, I would say still very much 6 to 10 months, I believe. Again, because of availability, You're looking at small accommodations. But you do have those, I would say, last minute bookings. The month still does work for some last minute bookings. But if you're traveling in the peak season, then that's when it becomes difficult.
Yeah, and if for fishing, if you want to go to Rewa, that can be up to a year to 2 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So Guyana's fallen back into, well, not fallen back into, has fallen into the category of a normal destination in regards to availability, as in you want to be looking at your 6 to 8 months ahead to get the itinerary and or accommodation of your choice.
That is correct.
If you can't book it at that far ahead, there may be opportunities to find availability, but it'll be what is available, take it or leave it type situation. So that's a positive sign. And again, as Carla has mentioned, the country is working towards adding more availability. So hopefully that will probably stay the same, but you'll have obviously more choices and maybe a bit more.
Yes.
With that. One last thing. I don't think it happens in Guyana itself. I think it happens in French Guyana. If some rocket person wanted to go down, because for those who don't know, there are a lot of rocket launches. I think it's from French Guyana. Is that correct? Or is it Suriname? Or
no, French Guyana.
I just was there. The day before the rocket launch in August.
So in French Guyana, there are lots of rocket launches. There's a rocket launch base down there. It's because it's close to the equator, a whole other different astronomical reasons. Try that again. So Jane and or Carla, if someone wanted to go into Guyana and get across to French Suriname to witness a rocket launch, one, is that possible? Can you actually see them launch? And 2, how do you go about doing that, working out the dates, etc.? Is that us asking you when a rocket launch is happening and then building an itinerary to get you into a viewing point for that?
So yes is the simple answer, but also they don't release the dates very far in advance. That's the only challenge with that.
Right. So that's very much, I wouldn't say hit and miss, but that's rather refined request. If we get it, we can work towards it. We can try and get it built for you. So it's doable, but it has parameters and caveats built around it, correct?
Correct.
It does.
That's if they want to particularly see the launch.
Yeah, and the Space Center, though, is very, very interesting. I spent a couple of hours there. Yes, very interesting. And also, it's right by Devil's Island.
Yeah, okay.
So it's just basically the same town that they...
Right, so Devil's
very
Island,
close.
For those who may or may not know, that's the famous story of Papillon, and where the French used to send their criminals. It was pretty horrific, actually, what they did. So that's another history. We're talking a different country, of course. But on that note, our partners, Wilderness Explorers and Carla, you have an itinerary, I think it's called the 3 Guyanas, which takes you into, obviously, Guyana itself, French Guyana, and Suriname. Is that right?
Yes, it's actually called Discover the Hidden Guyanas, but touches on all 3 countries, the highlights of all 3.
Okay, so my suggestion, if someone's looking at going down to that region, try and grab all 3 if you can. And this will lead into my last question to Jane. Let's go back to what our focus is, Guyana itself. What is a good length of time to spend in the country to get a best of? Is it a week? Is it 2 weeks? Again, taking budget and time. So let's go unlimited budget, unlimited time, and then down to what is the standard time frame.
Okay. Unlimited budget, unlimited time, I'd say around 2 weeks. And that way you can really immerse yourself in some of the places. You're not there 1 or 2 nights. You can spend 3 nights at a lodge to get in there. And then a short amount of time, minimum, I think, of 10 days. Yes, you can do a nice 5-day trip, but which it can be easy from Miami to do that. But I mean, to really get a good feel, I'd say 10 days. You get a few days in Georgetown, you go out to Kaitour, and then from there, we've got quite a few different lodges to go to the Rupununi, stay on the savannah to see good wildlife.
Yeah. And that's like a best of itinerary. But as we've already mentioned, you could do a fishing only trip, a birding only trip. You could do a trekking trip. There are so many variations and options available down there. Okay. So let me ask Jane, is there anything else you'd like to let our travel professional partners out there know about Guyana?
That the tourism board, we are here to help you. Anything you want to know, we're here. Our job is to help you.
And that's Jane's dog in the background. Everyone barking away.
Sorry.
Yeah, right,
I have the German Shepherd from hell.
That's right. And that's relevant to our podcast. And Carla, is there anything else you'd like to pass on, be it from your time as a tourist board representative to now the private sector, or as a local from Guyana?
Yeah. I think just really wanted to share that, Guyana is a really special destination. And tourism is really helping communities, etc. The infrastructure is still very rustic, but I would say, choose to visit Guyana because your money really does go toward helping to build these communities and to build the economy. So just knowing that your money is going toward something really good.
Yep. Guyana is in that early stage of development, comparatively speaking to its neighbors. They are in a really good position to learn from others' mistakes.
Yeah.
I think you've heard today that just naturally prior to the find in the oil and gas industry, but that's obviously going to help things, that the development of the tourism industry has all been very locally focused and based, indigenous groups expanding their horizons. As Carla has mentioned, the learning uptick on how to run a lodge, etc., is increasing. The local economy is only getting wealthier through tourism, through its natural resource finds. The country will expand. It'll get better. It will be moved from the rustic up to the nice, and probably into the luxurious role at some stage. The country has everything you need. You can see it now, see it at its rustic level, come back. And this is the other thing too, like any country, you can go back once, twice, 3 times. Go in the next year or two and then go back in 4 or 5 years and see how it changes. But I suggest people go now. That I suggest our travel partners, when someone comes to you with a request for South America, don't forget about Guyana. It's as good as any other country around it. I think it's better in a lot of ways because it is much more natural, literally, I think spiritually, in a whole lot of different ways. So don't ignore it. Goway's been working with Wilderness Explorers for many, many years, trying to get, again, uptake and traction on this destination as it fights from a marketing point of view with its bigger neighbors. I think now is a good time. Well, it's always been a good time, but now is even better time to get down there. The tourist board through Jane and, well, not, I almost said Carla, through Jane and Carla as our local office down there in Georgetown, there to help you. We have a couple of itineraries on our website, but again, as Goway customizes everything, give us a call. Tell us what your clients are interested in. We can take them anywhere from just being in Georgetown and doing, again, inverted commas, those not watching, civilization, all the way to soft adventure. Probably wouldn't recommend it, to this extreme survival course off in the jungle. It's there if you want it. But I think you can see by that you have everything on hand in Guyana. So on that note, I'd like to thank Carla for her time today, coming to us from Georgetown, and Jane coming to us, I think you said, Jane, from Atlanta in the US of A. Thank you, ladies, both for your time today. And as always, to our travel partners out there, thank you for your time. We know how busy we are. Busy you are, but we are too. Busy you are, and we appreciate you giving us some of your time today. On that note, thank you very much.
Our pleasure. Bye.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Don.